readers, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do either a 6 or 12-hour reading vlog. I haven't really decided yet. I filmed a couple of clips so far this morning. I did already start reading because I just decided not to film first thing when I got up. Also, why is it that I always feel like filming on Tuesdays? Because Tuesdays are when the lawnmowers come over, so you can't really hear half of what I say whenever there's a lawnmower going on outside. Anyways, focus of today's vlog is more to just finish up some books. Today is September 21st. I have my birthday in 4 days. I have no idea what's going on in my life in October because I've got so many different things planned or hesitantly planned for. So I just kind of want to, I want to finish up what's on my shelf currently. I started keeping a list in my planner of books that I'm currently reading, and that's a lot because I can't seem to finish anything still. But I finished 2 books. I started reading Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doughty last night. That is the only Caitlin Doughty book that I hadn't read so far. I finished that like 2 hours ago. Really loved it. I was a little hesitant because a lot of people were saying that it was very much young adult, and young adult nonfiction, and they didn't necessarily enjoy it as much as some of her other books, but I really loved it. I liked it more than, what is it, From Here to Eternity, which just didn't really have that as much personality to it as Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, which is still my outstanding favorite book of hers. But Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs is basically a series of questions from kids about death, and she answers them in a very honest and scientific way, and I really, really loved that. I also finally finished Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. I've been working on this series for a little bit. I recently started rereading the series because a while ago when I started book 2, couldn't get into it, couldn't remember anything, so I had to start the series over. Third book is not my favorite. Honestly, I think most of that is because I read it as an audiobook. I have a friend who is borrowing my physical copy of the third book right now, so I just had a lot of trouble keeping track of things in it. Fantasy is one of those genres that I tend to avoid listening to as an audiobook because I just do better with remembering the details and with paying attention when it's a physical book. But nonetheless, I did finally finish it, and I have a couple of other books that I want to try and get today, if I can remember where over there. You might see some changes again. I walked into my library last night, I walked back into it this morning and decided I couldn't do it anymore. The rainbow book layout just wasn't working for me. It looked pretty, but I kept readjusting things, and I moved stuff off of a shelf so that I could just have a TBR shelf again, because I love having a shelf where I can just look at the books that I haven't read yet, see them all in one place, and decide what to read from there. So rainbow book organization is just not for me. That doesn't mean it's not for you, that just means it's not for me. Also, if you wonder why I'm not sitting on my footstool or sitting in my rocking chair, there is a kitty. You might see his little ear. That spot right there is his little tiny ear as he makes sleepies on my unicorn blanket on the rocking chair. Anyways, let's take a look at some of the other books that I'm reading right now. So what you're not going to see in this book pile right now is 100 Vicious Little Vampire Stories, which I believe, is right there. I have a vampire shelf, by the way. It's a shelf of all my vampire books and all my Dracula copies. As some of you may know, I've been reading that since not this past March, but the March before when COVID started. I just kind of hunkered down and started reading it. I'm going to finish that set of short stories eventually. I am. It's just not on my active TBR at the moment. I have Sexual Justice by Alexandra Brodsky. I was considering doing a standalone vlog on this. I might still, I filmed 1 clip for it so far, but it's basically kind of a how-to guide with the after effects of sexual assault or sexual harassment. What are your legal options in order to make the decision that's going to be best for you? I was sent this by Metropolitan Books, and I'm really enjoying it so far. Being written by a lawyer and being very law heavy, it's not as dry as I was thinking, which is nice. I also got Fuzz in the mail. This is Mary Roach's newest release. I love Mary Roach. Anyone who's been on my channel for more than like 2 videos knows how much I love Mary Roach, and I'm really enjoying this so far. It opens up being about a caterpillar, and I have been known to read this out loud to my coworkers at work, so I'm going to read aloud to you now. The first 2 paragraphs of the introduction to Fuzz, When Nature Breaks the Law. On June 26th, 1659, a representative from 5 towns in a province of northern Italy initiated legal proceedings against caterpillars. The local specimens, went the complaint, were trespassing and pilfering from people's gardens and orchards. A summons was issued and 5 copies made and nailed to trees in forests adjacent to each town. The caterpillars were ordered to appear in court on the 28th of June at a specified hour, where they would be assigned legal representation. Of course, no caterpillars appeared at the appointed time, but the case went forward anyway. In a surviving document, the court recognizes the rights of caterpillars to live freely and happily, provided this does not impair the happiness of man. The judge decreed the caterpillars be assigned a plot of alternate land for their sustenance and enjoyment. By the time the details were worked out, the defendants, having pupated, were surely through with their devastations, and all parties no doubt left the proceedings satisfied. That is a true story from the 1600s of caterpillars being summoned to court. And that is how Mary Roach chooses to start off this book, and I cannot wait to read through the rest of it and see what else she's got for us. So far, what we've been examining is, it's like a forensic analysis of an animal attack site. So like, what do you do if an animal murders someone? Well, in America, you kill the animal. But in places like India, elephants and such, not what happens, which has been very interesting to learn. There's so many cultural differences in what to do when nature breaks the law. So, excited to see what else that has going on. Next, I have up from the blue, I read The Flicker of Old Dreams by Susan Henderson, and I loved it. Found this at my local bookstore recently. Felt like I was reading a lot of nonfiction, which I'm still reading a lot of nonfiction, and wanted to dive into a fiction book, and loving this one. There's a couple of critiques I have about it, mainly that most of this book is from the perspective of an 8-year-old, but it's not written in the way I think an 8-year-old would think. However, still a very, very good book. I'm really loving it. I'm bulldozing my way right through this. I have like a quarter of the book left. I will probably finish this today. No problem. But basically a girl's mom kind of disappears, and there's a lot of mental health issues to explore in it. So I'm really loving it, and I can't wait to see where this story is taking me. I kind of want to look up spoilers for it because I'm so excited to see what happens, but also I'm enjoying it so much that I'm like, no, don't do that to yourself. Hold off. You can go without spoilers for a day. And next up I have Kindred. This one I actually started several weeks ago and just paused. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but my headspace has been weird. I've been here, I've been there, like I've been in a lot of different reading moods lately. But I did start reading Kindred. I'm hoping if I can finish up from the blue tonight, then I'll probably continue reading this. But this is kind of a historical fiction, time travel, science fiction sort of story. And definitely going to be making a lot of points on race and the differences between now and then, as well as the similarities. So we will see what happens with that. And yeah, I guess I will see you around in my vlog and check in with you all later. Hello everyone. I did a lot more reading this afternoon, ended up going outside for a walk, found a nice spot to sit down and finish Up from the Blue, which was really, really good. I liked the ending. So this book, this girl's mother just isn't there for her. It's clearly some sort of depressive mood, depressive episode, or just there's a lot of mental health stuff going on there. And at one point, they end up moving and her mom's not really around. Her dad's in the military, so he's really strict. And it's kind of a look at, I would say, emotional abuse. Not that the parents in this situation are necessarily intending emotional abuse, but you don't have to intend it for it to be a thing and for it to happen. So this is a really powerful book. It goes back and forth between the main character when she's older and having a baby and having to deal with seeing her dad again, and when she's younger and going through all of these traumas. So I did finish that, ended up giving it 4 stars. My one thing with the book was that the sections from the 8-year-old's perspective did not sound like an 8-year-old in any way. I would guess that she was like probably 12 at the youngest, but a pretty minor thing as far as the story goes. And then I did just pick up Fuzz again. I'm currently reading about leopard attacks in Bengal, and Mary Roach is investigating them and seeing, like, how do you handle a leopard attack? What do you do with the leopard officially, and what do villagers do with the leopards? Stuff like that. So I'm pretty much done with the reading straight through at this point. It's about 6 o'clock. I would say I've gotten in about 8 hours of reading today, which I'm happy with. I might read for a little bit longer, but I don't think I'm going to be reading through until 9 o'clock. My husband's home. I want to hang out with him. I want to hang out with my cats. So still count as a productive day, though, because I finished 3 books, 2 of which I've been reading for a little while now. I haven't finished a book in, I think, over a month now, so I count this as a success, and I will see all of you in my next video. Hello readers, it's a couple of days later because I just haven't had a chance to film again. I did actually finish another book a couple of hours after finishing all the other books that I just talked about, and that was the new Jim Crow. So I forgot to mention I had the new Jim Crow from my library on Libby, and then I also have They Were Her Property. That one I'm still working on, but the new Jim Crow, I've been doing a buddy read with Hillary from Melted Books, and I've been really, really close to finishing it. And I figured while I was working on some design homework that I would go ahead and finish reading that. So I go to turn on my phone because it's an audiobook. I get on Libby, I turn on the audiobook, I start listening to the rest of the new Jim Crow, and turns out I had a whole 2 minutes left on it. Because I looked at the bar and it says 100%, but she's still talking. I'm like, oh, I must be really close. And then 2 minutes later, it was done. So there you go. I finished another book that I've been working on for 2 months now. That was a 17-hour audiobook. I'll be honest, I wasn't that into most of it. It's a very, very popular book on race. And for me, it just didn't live up to the hype necessarily. But hear me out. I think a lot of the reason that it didn't really hit the spot for me was that I, at this point in my personal race education, have learned pretty much everything that book talks about, and so a lot of it was really redundant for me, except for the last chapter. The last chapter I really appreciated because she's talking about color blindness and how it's not helpful, and how part of that is that you have all these people who feel like topics are over politicized or overwhelming to talk about, and how they get so overwhelmed with the topic that they decide not to talk about it at all. and therefore just kind of become colorblind or continue in their colorblindness. They're overwhelmed with a topic, they just want to avoid it, and so they don't learn anything. And I think that was a really important thing for me to read, because that was more, not necessarily new information, but it was able to voice things that I've been thinking about, I guess, if that makes sense. And something I was actually talking about with a friend recently concerning race as well as like a ton of other things is that we don't have any room for, I don't know that forgiveness is the word that I'm looking for here, but I don't know if it's just because I'm on BookTube, I'm in the book community, I see a lot of stuff there, but I think every community kind of has their thing where they're like, you need to learn, you need to educate yourself, girl, bye. Like, you didn't educate yourself, you're canceled, that's it. And my friend was talking about how not everyone can, and a lot of times I'll be like, yeah, you should educate yourself, you should do the work, you need to do better. But then there are a lot of people kind of in my everyday life who, not that they can't do that, but they don't make room for it. For example, this is going to turn into a really long tangent, but for example, a lot of people would be like, well, how do you read so much? And it's because I make time for it. Like, I make room in my day to read, just like my coworkers at Ulta make room in their budget and in their day to go and get their nails done, just like other people make room in their day to sit down and watch a TV show. Not everyone is willing to make that room, and not everyone is willing to make that room for education. Say you have parents who are dealing with raising their children, and say some of those children have learning or physical disabilities or something else going on. Say that they're tight financially and they get a couple hours to relax at the end of the day and they just want to watch TV. They don't want to learn anything new. I think that we have to make some room for that, and that we have to be willing to have those conversations with them if they're not going to start it on their own. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but basically I'm saying, yes, everyone needs to learn and educate themselves, but not everyone has the time and resources, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to be a little more forgiving with that. But that's just my own politics. Anyways, that was my random tangent that I hope made sense. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.